Hi, everybody. It's a delight to be with you today. But first, let me get an idea of who is in the audience. So I see here that there are 11 participants, and I'm assuming that the majority of you are looking for information about how to achieve accredited speaker. And the reason to achieve accredited speaker is because it's the Toastmaster designation for a professional speaker. So does that mean that most everybody in the audience is thinking that they want to become a professional speaker, or have I got it wrong?
Silence gives consent.
Okay. All right. So then I am going to speak to you about the content that's in my book. And this is not about selling my book. It's about, this just happens to be, I wrote down everything that I've learned in 20 some odd years of being a professional speaker. And so the 7 secrets are, and you're happy to jot these down, you can buy an e-version of my book on my website, which is cleverly named Anne Barab, ANNEBARAB.com. If you're interested, it's there, it's easy to download, and I think the e-version is only $10. But I'm going to tell you what the 7 secrets are, because the issue is not knowing the 7 secrets, the issue is making them work for you. So there's a first category, and there are 3 items under the category of develop your topic. So the first category is develop your topic. And under that, the first secret is, what is your unique point of view? Unique POV, point of view. The second is organize your speech, which we're Toastmasters. That's what, project number 2 in the CC manual is all about. The third is make a point, tell a story. Make a point, tell a story. Then we get to the second category of secrets, and that category is called connect with the audience. Connect with the audience. So the fourth secret under connect with the audience, continuing the listing, is have a conversation. Have a conversation. The fifth point, the fifth secret is see it, comma, hear it, comma, do it. And that is about communicating in all the learning styles with your audience. And we'll talk about that in a second. And the 6th secret is add humor. Then the 3rd category is grow. Grow. And so the 7th secret is till your internal soil. Till, T-I-L-L, as in gardening. Till your internal soil. Okay. So I'm going to focus on the concept of professional speaking. This is my overview. So let me just say that the difference between a professional speaker and most Toastmaster speakers is that Toastmasters can talk about and give speeches on topics that nobody will buy to hear. For example, how to bake chocolate chip cookies and how to give your dog a bath and my experience at the airport. These are topics that we as Toastmasters listen to and we applaud and we say, oh, that was wonderful and I'm looking forward to your next speech. But these have no commercial value. Nobody is going to buy these topics. So the first category of secrets is you've got to develop a topic that will sell out in the marketplace, that people will actually pay dollars to hear about. In fact, as I have judged accredited speakers, many accredited speaker applicants get eliminated in the first level of judging because they don't have a topic that has any commercial value. So here's how you can begin to find your commercially viable topic. Go to www.nsa in National S Speakers A Association Speaker. So it's nsaspeaker.org, nsaspeakers.org, or just Google National Speakers Association. When you get to that website, you will find a box that you can click on that says Find Speakers by Topic. So click on that, and what will pop down is a whole list of, the last time I counted it, and it was when I was writing this book several years ago, there were like 175 topics. When I first joined the National Speakers Association 21 years ago, there were only about 30 topics. And those topics were your standards: leadership, change, stress, communication, customer service, sales, those kinds of things. Well, now the list of topics has expanded exponentially to include health and wellness. And we're not just talking health and wellness, we're talking gluten intolerance, we're talking you and your therapist, we're talking yoga, we're talking all kinds of subtopics within the general topic of health and wellness. So go to that list and look at all those topics and pick 5 max, but you're going to narrow it down to 3. So at least pick 5 of those topics that you're knowledgeable in, that you have life experience, or that you're passionate about. So guess what? Quilting is not on that list. It's a very popular topic in quilting circles, and people speak about quilting and teach the skill, and it's very viable, but it doesn't sell in the corporate world. It doesn't sell. Associations, and these are your 2 marketplaces, corporations and associations. Unless you're at a quilting conference or a quilting bee, nobody is asking you to speak about quilting. So you don't have to invent topics. You can confirm that what you're passionate about is already out there as a working topic. Now, let's say that you are interested in quilting. Okay, well, you can talk about quilting, but maybe you need to do it is how to be a leader in the quilting world. So you're really going to transform your fascination with quilting into a topic where people are actually buying it. So that's a very broad and maybe even ineffective generalization, but the point is pick topics that people are already buying. Now, I will just say that in the world of speaking in the National Speakers Association, the last statistic I heard, and that was several years ago, just because I haven't gone back and tried to check this statistic, but only about 5% of members of NSA are making more than $50,000 a year from speaking. So let that sink in. There's about 4,000 members of NSA. Only about 5% are making more than $50,000 a year. So what that means is that there are a lot of speakers and there are a lot of organizations that pay very little or that want you to speak for free. There's endless numbers of people that want you to speak for free. So as you are developing your plan for what you want to be when you grow up, if you want to make a living as a professional speaker, and that means live comfortably, so presumably you know what your needs are financially to be able to live comfortably, but poverty level is about $25,000 a year. So if you want to make more than that to live to support your lifestyle, you need to get a topic that people want to buy, and then you've got to go find the people that want to hear that topic. That's what the critical thing is that's all about. It's just like if you want to make lipstick, you've got to find a target market of people who want lipstick, and then you got to figure out what color lipstick they want, and then you got to go out and paint it on the pig, okay? So as you're picking your topic, look for things that you care deeply about or that you have a lot of life experience in, and go from there. So I talk to people all the time who say, when I was vice president of membership for my chapter for NSA, which was several years, I would talk to about 5 speakers a week, people who would call and but 20s, early 30s, and I will say, okay, so what's your credential? Why should I listen to you talk about leadership? And they'll go, well, I've never been a leader, but everybody talks about leadership, so I thought I needed to talk about leadership. No, 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 no. Really, you only need to talk about something you actually know about. So if you haven't been a leader, there are already a whole bunch of people out there talking about leadership that have never been leaders. So pick something you really know something about, and then mold it into something that has a little bit more universal appeal. So when I'm talking to wannabes and somebody says, well, I know a lot about project management. I go, okay, what kind of projects have you managed? Well, I've managed getting lipstick to market. I'm going, okay, so what do you know about getting other things to market? Well, I don't know anything about that. I only know about lipstick to market. Okay, there's a really narrow market for people who talk only about project management of getting a lipstick to market. But if you can go into a more universal topic of project management and expand it into getting things done, there's now actually a topic on NSA for project management. But perhaps what you can expand it to is teamwork, or maybe it's supply chain, or maybe it's leading diverse groups of people. So do you see how you can take what really project manager is more like a job title, but you look at the skill set and the experience that you have in it, and you expand it into a more universal topic. Because the more universal it can be, the more people are likely to buy it, the larger your marketplace is. So if this is resonating with you, would you please nod? I can see about 4 or 5 screen topics here. If we're getting this, good. If we're not getting it, raise your hand and type a question into the chat room so I know what it is I'm not getting across. So now let's talk about how you begin to develop your unique point of view. Let's assume you've picked 3 topics you want to talk about. So my 3 topics are leadership, teamwork, and communication. And these are generally topics that associations and corporations are always having leadership training, and they want these topics at conferences and whatnot. But if you look at the NSA site, 4,000 speakers in NSA, at least 1,200 of them talk about leadership. So what is it that is your unique life experience, your unique point of view that makes your wisdom about leadership different from the next person's? And that is your unique point of view. So here's a way for you to begin the search to find your unique point of view. And I just want to say, I've been speaking 20 years, and I don't know, maybe I'm a slow learner, but it has evolved. My unique point of view has evolved and grown over time. And heaven forbid it hadn't evolved and grown. Heaven forbid I'd landed on my box 20 years ago and I was still stuck in that particular box. I would not be proud of that. So I'm not apologizing, and I don't want to discourage you, but it's taken me 20 years to get to the box that I'm just now entering into. I just decided to rebrand myself. I turned 70 last year, and I decided, you know, do I really need to continue to speak? And, you know, hey, Lord, am I still relevant to the rest of the world? And he sent me an email and said, get your buns back out there, girlfriend. It's taken me 70 years to train you. You're only just now worthy of the platform. Yes, sir, I see you. I see you. I see you. Okay. So now I've turned 71, and I have finally figured out the box that I need to refocus my leadership discussion into, and that is wisdom leadership. Now, I've been talking about wisdom for 15 years, but I finally have realized it's time for me personally to step out of this, I don't know, perky humorous kind of. I have been doing it based on personal excellence in the areas of leadership, teamwork, and point is, you don't need to spend time complaining about how you'd be a wonderful team member if only the rest of the people on your team were not such losers, you know, or you'd be a great leader if you just had excellent followers. This isn't about everybody else. This is, yes, but are you actually modeling excellent leadership? And are you actually an excellent team member? Would your team members pick you to be on their team, or are you part of their teamwork problem? So it was about focusing on your own personal performance. So now I'm recrafting that to wisdom leadership. The question that is the challenge is figure out your unique point of view. And part of the reason that just knowing the secret that you need to have a unique point of view isn't all that helpful is because it's like, how do you go about actually developing your unique point of view? But let me just suggest that if you're on the NSA website, go click on some of these people who are talking about leadership and see how they're advertising themselves. And I mean, you don't have to invent dirt here. It's already been invented. So go look at what other people are doing, scope out your competition in whatever your topic is, find out how other people are doing it, what they're doing, and then use that information to either kind of, gee, I really agree with that point of view, but I think I've got this unique perspective. So maybe if I tighten focus on this area, I can differentiate myself from the people who are just focusing on this bigger picture. So my point is, learn from other speakers who are already out there, but find your unique point of view. So let's assume that you figure out how to get started and that you find your, at least something that you're going to settle on as your unique point of view until you can grow it and cultivate it and narrow it or enlarge it or refine it, turn it from molten lava into steel, you know, whatever is your passion. So it takes a little time. It doesn't, you don't just sit down and jot a few notes down and brainstorm with your family for a few minutes and then you're done. This is a real journey. I will tell you that I thought it was going to be so easy to be a speaker, that I just stand up and blab and make people laugh. And a lot of people start out that way, so I'm not unique. But over the years, what I found is standing up and just blabbing is what you do at Toastmasters. But when you want to go out and get people to pay you money, especially money enough to live on, so we're talking a minimum of around $3,500 a speaking gig to be able to live on it, you got to have something to say that people really want to hear. You got to answer the question, what's in it for me, for the audience members that you find yourself in front of? You see, and that's a question that Toastmasters don't have to ask themselves. They don't have to speak to the need of their audience. They just have to meet the requirements of the project that they're working on, the manual or the path that they're working on. So we're going to go to secret number 2, which is organize your speech. And I'm really not going to spend much time on that because Toastmasters has done a wonderful job. You've got to have an introduction that says, I'm going to talk about this topic today. You've got to tell people where you're going. Because if you don't tell people where you're going in the first 2 to 3 minutes of your presentation, your paid presentation, they'll either A, tune you out. And this is your competition, not other speakers. This is your competition. So they can get on and Facebook and answer email and text and do all kinds of different things on here if you haven't gotten their interest that this is going to be something meaningful for them. Or if they're millennials, they just get up and walk out because, you know, they don't have to be polite. So your introduction tells people where you're going to go. And the second reason why you need to tell people where you're going to go on the speech is because there's a lot of linear people out there who want to know, where are we going? And I don't know how many speeches I have sat through where I couldn't figure out where the person was going until their closing sentence or two, you know? So if you're going to figure out where you're going in your closing sentence, write your whole speech, then read your closing sentence and write your introduction, okay? So you got to tell people, and this is how it sounds. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm just making this up on the fly, but let's say you decide you want to open with a story. So I was walking down the street one day and a red car drove by and blew mud all over me. And I've spent the rest of my life wondering, what is mud? So today we are going to talk about the 3 elements of mud and how that is relevant to everybody's life in this room. Everybody want to know about mud? Great, you're in the right place. Okay, so I've taken something that's preposterous, but that's what you got to do in about the first 2, 3, 4 minutes. I mean, this is beyond the you got to grab them in the first 10 seconds stuff. That's a different talk. But you've got to tell them where you're going and what this speech is going to be about. Then you're going to have your 3 points and then you're going to have your conclusion. And quite frankly, in a 45-minute keynote, about all you can cover is 3 points. If you're trying to cover 13 points in a 45-minute or a 1-hour keynote, I'm sorry, you're not covering anything well. So if you really want to make a point, then you're going to make your point and you're going to support it. And here's my formula for it. And it's, maybe I've got it written here, right here, my little formula. I used it. Yeah, here it is. You can take a picture of your screenshot right here. Here's the formula. And so you have your introduction. It's like an algebraic equation. I wrote this for my 4th grade kids when they had to pass their writing test for, state assessments. You got your introduction plus assertion number 1 plus supporting detail. Next is plus assertion number 2 and supporting detail. And then third, assertion number 3 and supporting detail, and that was in parentheses, equals the conclusion. So it's a logic stream, and you make an assertion. I believe mud is caused by the combination of water and dirt. Let's talk about examples of that. Statistically, dirt has proven to be all over the face of the earth. In my experience, dirt generally needs to be washed out of your clothes. Yada, yada, yada. The point is, the way you support an assertion is you make a statement that you believe to be true, then you either use statistics or scientific evidence or an example, and then you tell a story about how dirt, or whatever it is your assertion is, makes a difference in your life. And then the next point says, so if it's really true that dirt is composed of molecules and mud is composed of water, therefore, one of the best ways to avoid mud would be to not combine the two, to stay away from dirt and water. So point number 2 needs to be a logical sequence of point number 1. Then point number 3 is a logical sequence of points 1 and 2. And then the conclusion is the summary. Well, clearly points 1, 2, and 3 prove that conclusion, and that was a C. Conclusion is whatever your conclusion is. Toastmasters does an excellent job of teaching you how to organize your points. We don't always follow their advice, but that's easy enough. So the third secret is make a point, tell a story. Make a point, tell a story. And as Toastmasters, we all know that one. You make your assertion, and then you tell the story. And the better your story is, and the better told your story is, and the more applicable your story is to your assertion, the more people will remember it. There's the phrase that's rampant in NSA and also Toastmasters. Nobody will remember your point, but nobody will ever forget your story. So I cannot stress enough how important it is. But you might tell your story and then make your assertion, make your point. Or make your point, give some data, tell a story, and then reiterate your point. Or give some statistics, make your point, tell your story, reiterate your point. You don't have to do them in just one sequence. That gets boring. But do it in whatever sequence, but make a point and tell a story. And that's the third thing. So again, Toastmasters really helps you with that. So let's go to the next part, which is connect with your audience. So the fourth secret is have a conversation with your audience. Okay, here's where Toastmastering starts getting a little sketchy from professional speaking. How many of you have actually been to an international conference and maybe seen international competition speeches? Yes, 1 or 2? Okay, good. Well, then you know that competition speeches of 5 to 7 minutes frequently are way over rehearsed, and they sound very unnatural and stilted. Can I have a nod? A yes, amen, sister? Yes, they do, because people have just rehearsed them and they've worked so hard on them. And see, the trick to giving a great international competition speech is not over rehearsing. It's to being a great actor, so that it sounds like you just thought this stuff up. So the problem is not that the speakers are too much rehearsed. It's that they're just not good enough actors to make you think that it's brand new thought to them. So I want to tell you two stories. One is about me and the other's about Jerry Seinfeld. So when I first joined Toastmasters, naturally I competed. And finally, my third year in a row that I made it to my district, my husband, my beloved, finally came to the competition, because he does not participate in Toastmasters, and he hadn't come, and he isn't a rah-rah, you know, he's like, you're a grown-up, you can go do this on your own, it's your deal. So he came to the competition, and as usual, I came in second. And so he said, as we were driving home, he says, you know, I think you've got to make a choice here. You can either continue to compete in Toastmasters, or you can become a professional speaker. But I don't think you can do both at the same time. And he was absolutely right. I don't know that I could still do both at the same time, because in professional speaking, you just have a conversation with the audience. But if you've got 5 to 7 minutes of wildly rehearsed information or a speech, I don't know that I'm a good enough actor to make it sound really natural. Because Toastmasters just kind of make it very oratorical. And so I learned from the game of baseball that you've got to hit the ball and then you've got to run to first base. Okay, I'm overacting here. But the point is, you got to be natural if you're going to get paid. Because when you're standing up in front of a buying public, they want to feel that you're talking to them personally, not that you're giving a performance. They want to feel like you're looking them in the eye and you can actually see directly into their heart. They want you to anticipate what they're thinking and give them wisdom how to understand what this thinking really is. So you can't do that by oratory. Oratory is the kind of speaking that Martin Luther King did, which is wonderful. If you have an audience of 100,000 people on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, that's the kind of speaking you have to do because the sound system has so much reverberation. But people today are generally not wanting to listen to that kind of powerful oratorical speaking. The main places that I hear oratory is in kind of Southern Baptist churches or African American type churches, and they have a magical way of communicating, which I cannot imitate, and it's not my style, but they get all of these alliteration points, and they get all of these rhyming points, and they're wonderful. And that's the best oratory that I hear in my daily walk in 2018. But not that many people in corporate America or in associations are looking for a seminar that is primarily oratory. What they want is a conversation with an authentic, genuine person who is actually telling them how they can live a better life, how they can improve what they're doing, how they can become a better person or a better project manager or a better leader or a better follower or a better communicator. That's the whole what's in it for me question. So have a conversation with your audience. Don't preach at them. Just make them feel like you're talking directly to them, even though there's 800 other people in the room. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Okay. The fifth secret is see it, hear it, do it. And this is predicated on the fact that you need to have knowledge. If you're going to be a speaker, you're not a speaker. You are an adult teacher or a teacher of adults. And guess what? Adults need to learn the same way kids do. So there's all kinds of information out there about learning styles. So go Google learning styles and then go read up on it. But here, let me give you the overall summary of learning styles. Human beings learn basically in three main ways. 1, auditory. 2, visual. 3, kinesthetic. Auditory, what they hear. Visual, what they see. Kinesthetic, what they experience. That means speakers need to use everything they can to get it with these three different auditorial styles. I mean, these three different learning styles. Only 17% of the population are auditory only learners. I am not an auditory learner. Sadly, I didn't learn this until I was 50 years old. But like when I meet people and they say, hi, my name is Clem Cadiddlehopper, it's through my brain. It does not stop and take up real estate. I cannot even repeat what they just said 1 second later. If they are wearing a name tag with a name that is printed large enough to read, which would not be this Toastmaster name tag. I just got my accredited speaker name tag and I came from a meeting. So here I am. But with your name printed large enough for me to be able to see it, I can get your name. That means I am primarily an auditory learner. 38% of the population are visual. I'm sorry, that means I'm a visual learner. So 38% of the population are visual learners. So that leaves 56, I think, 56, 57% of the population who are kinesthetic learners. And that means they need to experience. The way I learn is I write and I take notes. Not because I'm ever going to look at those notes again. But if I'm writing down what I hear that I think is important, then that means I am hearing it, I'm seeing it, and I'm also writing it. So I'm learning in three different ways simultaneously. I am amused. And I have heard any number of professional speakers say, well, I hand all my notes out after the presentation is over. Well, and my response to that is you're an idiot, because that means you eliminated all the people who are visual learners. Now, if you're using PowerPoint, that's fine. We can talk about PowerPoint later or not at all, but PowerPoint is a whole different topic, but it means if people can't see it, you're wasting their time and yours as well. So if you're putting a piece of paper with, or a PowerPoint up that only has 12-point font, because that's what you use on a piece of typing paper, on a piece of computer paper, you have totally missed the point of PowerPoint, so turn it off and just go back to talking. But this is where you tell a story, because it creates a visual image of what is happening, and you tell the story in a way so that people can visualize it in their mind's eye, and you use your body to choreograph, to become characters, to show people. It's not you're using posture to simply wave your arms in directions. It's you're trying to tell the story in such a way that people who are visual learners can visually see the story in their mind's eye. And of course, if you can add something where they join in some way, then you've added in the connectivity, the experiential learning. Okay, so that's why there's all this emphasis on get your audience involved. Now, if anybody has questions about PowerPoint, that's in this chapter, and I've got rules and what to do and absolutely what not to do, but you know, you can go and actually find out what to do. But the point is, if you're going to waste time having a screen set up and a projector, People in the back row need to read every word on the screen, which limits you to no smaller than 40-point font at a minimum, and that's for your subheadings. Your title should be at least 60, 70, 80 point font. And so that eliminates a white sheet with 14 bullet points on it, okay? Also, just rule of thumb, dark background, white letters. Dark background, white letters. The only time that does not work is if you are in a room that is flooded with sunlight directly on the screen. If you're in a room that's flooded with sunlight directly on the screen, then it's white background, black letters. All the rest of the time, it's dark background, white letters. Also, never turn off the lights so people can see the screen. Because if the screen is more important than you, then just email the PowerPoint to them. They do not need to waste their time coming to see you speak. Do I need to repeat that one? I just came yesterday from a Toastmaster district conference, and sure enough, the speaker had specially requested that the lights be turned down so people could see the screen, which, by the way, was absolutely useless from about the third row back because he had little bitty words on the font. He was standing in front of a black Poland drape, black velvet, wearing a black suit. So basically, we could hear him, we couldn't see him, and it was all, you know, and like, what's wrong with that? The speaker is supposed to be more important than the PowerPoint, and everything you need to say should not be on the PowerPoint. You've got to be bringing more to the conversation than just PowerPoint bullets. Okay, those are some of my pet peeves. Moving on, add humor. Okay, we have a joke in the world of professional speaking, and it is, do I have to have humor in my presentation? And the answer is only if you want to get paid. So, I talked to Zig Ziglar when I first started going to NSA, one of my very first conferences. There was Zig Ziglar just sitting there with his wife, the redhead, the lovely redhead. And so I went up to him. I mean, just, you know, like, you just go up and talk to Zig? Yes, because he was a very humble servant leader. So I went up and said to him, how do you start your speeches? And he said, well, I try to make them laugh in the first 10 seconds, because if they laugh, they like you. And I thought, words to live by. So I said, could you give me an example of how you do that? He said, sure. He said, this is one of my favorite openers. I say, I heard a joke that was so funny, it would make your hair fall out. Then you look around the room, you pause, you look around the room, this is timing. You look around the room and spot a bald guy, and you say, but I see many of you in the audience have already heard it. And everybody laughs, especially if the bald guy is sitting in the front and the light is shining off of the top of his head. So he said, you can use that one if you want. And I said, thank you so much. And so I did. I used that one for about a year. And then one day I went to speak to the Chinese Institute of Engineers, and I noticed that nobody in the room was bald. There was just this Asian, big, thick Asian black hair sticking out all over everybody's head. My joke wasn't going to work. So I had to come up with something different. After I reflected upon it, I realized that it was great for Zig to tell that because he was a part of that demographic. He was a middle-aged, balding, thinning hair guy. So it was perfectly okay for him to make that joke. He was being self-deprecating. But for me to make that joke sounds like male bashing because I'm not part of that demographic. So I also tried to adapt it to women. You know, I heard a joke so funny it would make your hair turn blonde. I heard a joke so funny it would give you a facelift. I heard a joke so funny it would wrinkle your skin. Women don't laugh about that kind of stuff. So there was no perfect joke. So sadly, there is no universal joke that I've ever heard that works for everybody in every speech. But the sooner, if you can make people laugh in the first 10 seconds, they will like you. So add humor. And in this, I explain some of the tools of humor. Oh, the other story that I wanted to tell is about Jerry Seinfeld. So Jerry Seinfeld was not always successful. There was a time in the 80s when he was still a struggling young comedian, and he was working clubs up and down the East Coast and up and down the West Coast. And I'm sure, looking at the age of many of the people who are on this call, I see that you all will all know who Johnny Carson is. So Johnny Carson had scouts who would go around and, look at watching the comedy clubs to see who was ready. And I mean, Jerry had been working comedy clubs for years before Johnny's scout finally said, okay, buddy, you're ready. So he had 2 months to get ready to give 5 minutes on Johnny Carson. And of course, appearing as a comedian on Johnny Carson was your ticket to success, because you did your 5 minutes, and if Johnny Carson crooked his finger and said, come up here and sit down and let's talk, you were home free. You were in. But if he just said, well, thank you very much, you had been dismissed. It was going to take you years to recover from that, because Johnny didn't think you were funny enough. So Jerry was motivated. He practiced his 5-minute routine 400 times in 60 days, in the 2 months that he had to get ready. Now you might wonder, how did he do that? Well, he'd go to one club and do the 7 o'clock show and do his 5 minutes. And he'd walk down the street, go to another club, do the 8 o'clock show, walk down the street. 9 o'clock show, down the street, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Same material, night after night. But he would find out what was funny at 7 in the evening, before everybody had too much to drink, and what was funny at 1 in the morning when everybody was drunk, were different things, and he was able to craft his material. So when he walked out there, and this is the magic of being a great actor, even though he knew every line backwards and forwards, he could probably wake up out of a dead sleep at 3 in the morning and go right into his routine. He sounded like it was the very first time he'd ever heard it. And everybody laughed, and Johnny crooked his finger, and Jerry is wildly successful. So here's the point. Number one, if you're going to memorize, and you should, particularly with humor, you got to be good at acting it out. And number two, humor looks like you just thought it up, but it is memorized down to the word. You did not just think it up. It just has to look that way. And therein lies the trick of humor. Humor is the hardest form of speaking to do. It has to have the fewest words possible leading up to the joke. Phyllis Diller one time spent 2 years trying to take a joke, a one-liner, down from 8 words to 7 words. Most people, most Toastmasters who try to tell funny stories go on and on and on for 2 or 3 minutes to get to one punchline. People don't want that kind of humor. That's humor that worked in the 50s and the 60s when the Shecky Greens of the world told lengthy stories that ended with, and then my wife did it, so we're poking fun at the wife. But people now want one-liners. So the rule of thumb is 6 laughs per minute. If a comedian can be getting 6 laughs a minute, that's good. So there's a real art to doing that. And I talk about that in the humor book. But the point is, learn some things about humor. You don't have to learn them just from my book, but by cracky, learn them somewhere. Now, I'll tell you that in my book, I actually have a script from a TED Talk that is one of the funniest TED Talks I've ever seen. And it's also one of the most watched TED Talks. And so what I do is say, here's a rule. Now go watch this TED Talk. and also laboriously copied down every word. And so when you just read the words, they don't sound very funny at all. But if you see it being delivered by the speaker, they may have gotten 8 laughs out of that paragraph. So the issue is not that the words are what's funny, it's the delivery that makes humor funny. But anyway, so there's a real live action example for you to follow along so you can see the principles of humor illustrated. The other thing is the difference between comedy club humor and business humor. Business humor, comedy club humor is harsh. The whole premise of comedy club humor is, this is so weird, this is so stupid, this is so, I don't know, dumb, this is so ridiculous. I mean, the IRS is so stupid because they expect us to just give them our money. This is so dumb. No, people in business don't want to hear about how stupid they are. It's harsh humor. So the kind of humor that you use in corporate settings and in association speaking settings is not, this is so stupid, but it's self-deprecating. It's gentle humor. It says, you know, so I ate 15 ice cream cones and then was astonished when I gained 5 pounds. So what you're doing is you're saying something obvious and you're poking fun at yourself. You're not saying, so this idiot over here ate 15 ice cream cones and then was astonished when they gained 5 pounds. No, that is coming from a point of view that says, hi, I'm smarter than the rest of you, and let me tell you what idiots you are. Okay, it may work for some people, but that's not what people want to laugh at. Okay, and the last of the 7 secrets is till your internal soil, continuously cultivate yourself and grow. So let me just say that the journey of being a speaker has been the highest growth 20 years of my life, and that includes infancy, toddlerhood, teenage years, and early 20s times 3, when we're supposed to be learning the most. Because I've had to read so much information and absorb so much information from so many different sources. And so like psychology helps me understand more about leadership, and anthropology helps me understand more about teamwork, and sociology helps me understand more about communication. And just so open your mind and start learning like a fire hydrant shooting stuff into you, and just, that's a metaphor that doesn't work, pardon me. So the point is, grow. You don't know everything you need to know to stand up in front of people and talk. So in order to, you may have had experiences that are very much make you worthy to be listened to, but learn more, grow more. If you want your audiences to grow, you need to be a grower too. If you're going to inspire them to make themselves better, you need to be making yourself better too. So walk your talk, and it takes time, energy, effort, and it's the greatest ride of your life. The end. Questions? A round of applause. So, questions. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask?
This is Ed speaking.
Yes?
I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for your presentation, and to let you know that I just interviewed for TED Talks Friday evening.
Yes.
For the Coeur d'Alene TED Talks, and it looks like I'm going to be there. And they told me they wanted me to change it to a personal experience. And I'm thinking about the opening line. And while you were talking, I actually came up with my opening line that I'm going to use in this. I want to thank you very much, because I've been beating my head against the wall the last 2 days trying to come up with this. So,
And that's the way it is. So tell me, I don't want to know the rest of your speech. What's your opening line?
I'm here today talking to you because of a question My grandson asked me 3 years ago, and basically that's because of a question he asked me. I went back to school and got a college degree at the age of 72.
Okay, so what was the question?
Grandpa, Mom told me you never finished college. Why?
Would you like some coaching?
Yeah.
Okay. The fact that you're standing in front of them is simply obvious. You don't need to say that. The fact that a question changed your life is not relevant. This is like trying to tell a joke and killing it in your first line. So your first sentence had about 3 or 4 clauses hung together, and we still don't know what the question was. So suggestion, the question is the most important thing. You look very Santa Clausy. Just walk up there and say, Grandpa, whatever it was, Mommy told me you never graduated from college. Why? Only I didn't use the right inflection. I didn't, whatever your grandchild did. Okay. You don't need to say that was my grandson. You are clearly old enough to have a grandson. And the fact that the person addressed you as grandpa is another clue. So what you've got is a whole bunch of extraneous stuff. Just get to the question.
Okay.
And then the next sentence is, it was a question that changed my life. Okay, now you are into your topic. You have used 2 sentences. 3 if you count why as a sentence. Okay? You don't have to give a lot of context. You just have to be the grandchild looking up at the grandpa, and then the grandpa reacting and going, oh my God, it is time for me to fix my life. Okay? So suggestion, you're on exactly the right track. You just got to eliminate all the brush that's getting in the way from the important tree in your forest. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great, I'm glad. Did you all learn from that experience from coaching him?
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's another thing is we all learn from each other. You may think you need to be the one that's in the front using your stuff, but you can learn from other people working on their stuff as well. And your name is what, sir?
Ed Newman.
Ed. Okay. Ed, thank you so much for stepping up and asking that question. And I'm glad you had that inspirational light, because I have that inspirational light too. And it's when I'm taking notes and writing. So I may not be writing down what the speaker's saying. I'm writing down what it's causing to flash into my brain. And I'm perfectly happy for people to write down anything they want to write down. If somebody's writing in notes in one of my speeches, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. You think that something I'm saying is important enough to write down. And that's why I just want to slap speakers who say, well, they're not looking at me if they're writing down. You're like, get over yourself. You are an idiot, you know. So anyway, thank you, Ed. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions?
And I was wondering if you could talk about your journey to accredited speaker. When did you do it, and what challenges did you have?
Okay, I'll try to make it really quick. So when I first joined Toastmasters, okay, overachiever, just, you know, idiot overachiever is right across my forehead. So I saw in the back, accredited speaker, in the back of the manual. And I thought, oh, well, here's a hill to climb. I think I'll do that. And also the first year that I joined, people, you know, were giving me feedback and said, well, you know, you're pretty good. Why don't you go to the NSA? So within the first year that I started Toastmasters, I decided I think I want to be a speaker when I grow up. And I was 50 years old at the time. And I decided I'd been doing what I'd been doing for 30 years. I was very good at it and didn't want to do it anymore. So I knew I was already on the journey to try to become a professional speaker. So the first year I did a tape, and we only did audio tapes back then. It was the olden days. It was the 90s, the late 90s. So it seems to me I had an opportunity to speak at a big luncheon for the Chamber of Commerce. And it was like, you know, a 30 or 40 minute speech. And so I got up in front of the Chamber of Commerce and just waxed eloquent and went off on this tangent and that tangent, and because I thought I was just God's gift to communication. And so I took that, because it was a nice long speech, I took that tape and sent it in, and it was respectfully returned, and I was rejected. And it said, you need to organize your speech. Because I'd just gone off on all these tangents. I thought, oh, the Toastmaster rules don't apply to me. I'm special. I'm unique. I don't need to do this. Well, the point is, the rules are not for you. The rules are for the listeners, because this is how people listen and learn, with an organized presentation. So the next year, thus chastised, I continued giving speeches outside of Toastmasters to get the credential. And then the next one that I submitted, I made sure I had an opening, 3 points. And my second point is, and in summary, let me see, you need to remember 1, 2, 3, and conclusion. So I passed the tape part and made it to the judging. That year, there were 36 people who applied for accredited speaker, and only 2 made it to the judging. Wow. And I was one of them, and I wanted to videotape my judging. And so we videotaped it, and I used it in my marketing materials. But the guy that came after me stood up and gave a memorized speech. And about 13 minutes into it, your speech has to be at least 20, but no longer than 40 minutes long. Well, these days we've got so many candidates that, it can only be 20 or 17 or 18 minutes long. But I went for the full 40 minutes. Well, he, 13 minutes in, drew a complete blank, stood there for a good 30 seconds in total silence, trying to recapture himself. And so he didn't make it. I did. I saw him the next year. He made it to the judging the second time, and he froze at about minute 13 again, and he didn't make it. I don't remember his name, but what I learned is never memorize your speech. That doesn't mean don't write it down, don't learn it. But when you actually stand up to speak, don't be seeing a script rolling through your head in your mind's eye. It just flows out of you naturally. And this is also how you have a conversation with your audience and how you connect, because you are not spouting lines and your eyes do not look glazed with that I'm trying to see in my mind's eye what's the next thing look. So that was my journey. And it was a journey full of hubris and foolishness, but it was a learning experience, because we're all foolish until we learn and are humble. And yeah, that was it.
Well, great stories. And we don't have any questions in the chat box. Does anybody else have any questions?
I've got one about the accredited speaker steps. Okay. It's my understanding that on your paid speeches, if it's not $1,000, you basically don't get credit for it being a paid speech. Is that correct?
I don't think that's true, because I was a judge this year at International, and some of the speaker information for their paid speeches was less than $1,000. So I'm sorry to say that I don't know what the exact limit is, but I think if you go online, and it's online somewhere, or you can send a question to International and ask them if there is some kind of limit. It's accredited speaker at toastmasters.org, and they'll get back with you and tell you. And I'm sorry that I don't know the answer to that.
No problem. I'm going after that. So that's
yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. As I was looking at because as a judge, we received all the papers that had come with the submission for the applicant. And it was very clear from the submission papers that some people were making a living at being a speaker, and some people were absolutely not. some people had managed to cobble together some number of very low paid speeches, and they were not making a living at this at all. And to me, this is the point of accredited speaker is this a speaker not who can speak just well enough that they don't have a lot of ums and ahs and they have good organization, but is this a speaker who has something to say that people will pay for? See, when I was judging, I was looking and going, would I buy this? And that's what judges that's what the instructions tell judges. Would you buy this, and would you recommend that somebody else buy it? And when you put it that way, would I recommend this person for someone to buy? Would I put my reputation on the line that you should buy this person? That's a game changer, because you're not going to humiliate yourself by recommending somebody that you've seen that clearly doesn't have good information. So here's the summary. Accredited speaker, you've got to have presence, stage presence, and content. Real content. And a lot of times in the international competition, and I only cite that because it's something we all see, because it's for all of us, and you can see those speeches online. The presentation skills, the platform skills are clearly there. Content, not so much. Maybe it's inspirational, but it's not commercial. And I use the term commercial, and you might think that that's sounds horrible, but that's the business you're in. When you are a professional speaker, you're selling your ideas and yourself. So you got to have something that the dogs want to buy. You got to have dog food the dogs will eat. Does that help?
Yes.
Yes. Content. Content is king. In fact, you can be a worse presenter but have better content. Okay. And okay, let me just say one other thing. That's what I love about Pathways, is because every speech gets evaluated on things like vocal variety and clarity and ability to understand. Can we even understand what you're saying? Because we have so many English as a second language speakers. And, you know, are you aware of the audience's reaction? Are you connecting with the audience? I love this because instead of just doing project number 4, CC manual, vocal variety, you got to have vocal variety every time you stand up, even if you're just telling what you're going to do as timer. I mean, these are platform mechanics that need to be mastered and incorporated into every presentation, not just one project. That's why I love Pathways, because you're getting graded on all those things that matter, that are the platform mechanics that you need to master. So all you're focusing on is your content. Okay. Thank you, Ed. 2 good questions. Anybody else?
Well, we're about at the end of our time, so let me turn it back to Deborah, but thank you so much, and you just gave us amazing information, and we really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. If I can be of help to anybody or at any time, just give me a shout out. Ann@annbarab.com. I'm easy to find. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Ann. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
All right, back to Deborah.
All right. Hello. Well, that was excellent. I really appreciate all of these accredited speakers that you've lined up, Kathy. It's just been exciting, and I'm learning new stuff. And even if I'm not going to go down that path, it is giving me a lot of tools to put into my tool chest to use. Just today was just a lot of great tools there. So I thank you for that. I don't have anything else as Toastmaster, so I will turn that back to our precious leader, Victoria Chatterton. Are you still with us?
I am. I'd like to also acknowledge we had a couple of guests pop on to our
Oh, yeah.
broadcast. I appreciate you joining us, and I hope that it was informative of what you got to see. And with that, if you have any questions, yes, Deborah.
I believe if we could hear from the guest, I think they might be from a local club.
Oh,
This is Julie Peterson, and we're with the Columbia Basin Toastmasters. My husband Scott is also on. I didn't hear about it until I heard her talking, and so I'm like, wait, what's that? I want to listen. So I got in on it too. It was
Excellent.
awesome. It was amazing. I was like, wow, she's talking to me. So I thought it was great information, and I would love, my phone says REC, so I'm thinking it's recording somehow. So I would love to be able to listen to it from the start again as well.
That can happen.
Thank
Yes.
you.
We will make sure that that information gets to you. I appreciate both of you joining us. Scott,
Thank you.
hi.
Hi. I figured out my speaker.
Zoom technology.
No, it was very, very, very good information. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for attending. Yeah. All right.
All right. With that, we're going to sign off, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.